Hey everybody, Brian and Leslie Fatherees here from the Unbreakable podcast. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, quick question. Can you feel it? Can you sense it? Can you smell it? Can you see it? It's February. Love is
It's
in
in
the
the
air.
air.
Woo! It's in the air. So, in tribute to that, sorry,
Yes.
had to play. In tribute to that, our focus this month is going to be love. Imagine that.
Imagine
So
that.
we're going to start today, and we're
Hmm.
going to talk to, in general, there's a book written by Dr. Gary Chapman. You
Hmm.
probably, if you're a Christian at all, you probably heard this book. You probably got
Hmm.
18 versions of it. It's the five love
Yeah.
languages.
Hmm.
It's five love languages for, single parents, for divorced moms, Uncle Billy, Bob, Joe, Pete. Um, there's a version for anybody and everybody, is there
Yes.
not?
Yes. We own two.
We
The
own
the
two.
first one, which is the
Original.
original, and we own the one for kids because we had children and we wanted to speak their love language. So we got two. We have two of them.
Yeah. So today, what we really want to address, pardon me, is we really want to address those languages for your family, for
Right.
you and your children.
Yeah.
There are certain books that we really recommend people read
Hmm.
um, for them as a couple,
Yep.
them as a family. I actually recommend them for you in a ministry.
Hmm.
I had books that I made to people when I was senior pastoring read certain books. They
Hmm.
weren't necessarily the Bible. That's just a requirement.
Hmm.
But these other books help them to learn more about themselves and how to deal with other people.
Right.
So, Five Love Languages is one of those books. It
Yeah.
helps you
It is.
realize where you're coming from.
Hmm.
It also helps you recognize where others are coming from.
Right. Right.
There are five, count them five, one hand, it's like that. Um, five different love languages. So, one is touch, another one is quality time, words of affirmation,
Hmm.
acts of service, and gifts.
Yeah.
So those are the five: touch, time, words, acts of service, and gifts. Those are the five, and we're going to dig a little,
A little bit.
not greatly detailed, deep, but deep enough. So as we go forward, we will be able to um, share some things with you in regards to that.
Yeah.
And so we will give those things out to you, and we want to talk to them how, not just how to know what they are, but how to effectively use those to communicate and love your child.
And recognize what's happening maybe with some of the
Yeah,
situations in your house with kids
yeah,
and children and how they are interacting. Sometimes it's confusing. What are they doing? Why are they doing that? But if you kind of know where they're coming from, you can understand better what they might be trying to accomplish. So,
sure. So let's just take them one at a time here.
hmm.
Why don't you start with touch and talk about what that looks like? The love language, someone who
Okay.
has the love language of touch, and how to interact with it.
Right. Okay. So we have a daughter who is touch. And we
Oh
have a
boy, is
son,
she!
and we have a son who's touch.
Yeah,
And so you know what they do all the time? They wrestle and hug and touch each other every time they go past each other. It's a thing. Even now, when they're adults, that's
yeah,
how they interact because they are touch people. They get that from Brian. Brian is a touch person, and it's funny because that's not necessarily a generational, like something you pass down in your
no, it's not.
DNA or anything, but just they're very similar to their father. So touch is like our daughter who's touched. She is hug me every time I turn around. Um, she wanted that kind of attention when she was small. She wants it now when she's older. She just likes to be hugged. She
Yeah,
likes to have back rubs. She likes to have any kind of interaction that's physical with it, just fills her up and makes her feel
yep,
like she is loved and cared for, and it soothes her. It soothes raw nerves. If she's had a bad day or something wrong has happened, just rubbing, just standing there rubbing on her. I don't have to say anything really, even I just rub, and that makes her all better, or at least a lot better. So touch is a very easy one unless you don't speak touch, and then
mm-hmm.
sometimes that's a problem.
And so here's the thing: if you're have a child and or a we'll do the spouse later. If you have a child that is always touching feely,
Hmm.
and you're like, and you're not,
Hmm.
you're like, get off me.
Hmm.
relax.
Yeah.
That's just their love language,
Right.
and you learn. See, one of the things about love languages that we've learned is not just good enough to know how I express love.
Right.
I need to know how they express love, how how my children express love, and then work to express love in their language,
Right.
not just my own. It's okay to express it in my own language, but I also have to express it in their language. So touch is one of those that can be almost offensive to some people because they don't like to be touched.
Yeah. Okay, so our oldest daughter is the no-touch person. She doesn't want to be touched. Right. As a baby, she didn't want to be touched. At all. I mean, it was really hard.
She didn't want to cuddle.
She didn't want to cuddle. She doesn't want to do any of that.
Weird.
She doesn't want to be touched. And so she then has children who are touch children, of course. Time. So she has had to learn how to give to them the touch that they need, but then also go close herself in the bathroom if she needs a moment to just not be touched. So it's just a balance of knowing what they need, giving them what they need as a parent, but then also knowing that you might need to back off for a minute and regroup, which is fine. Yeah. I, as a parent, am not opposed to touch. I like a good cuddle, but I am not, that's like not my major language. Right. I have grown in it and learned how to, especially for those children who needed more touch, I had to learn to apply more touch because they needed to feel loved, and that was important.
It is. So that's the love language of touch. We're not going to go, like I said, super deep in each one of these. So the next one is time. Yeah. It says quality time. I think that's a misnomer, even with what Dr. Chapman was saying, but he's right and he's wrong. Quality
Brian
time.
Wants to add to it.
I do, because quality time comes from quantity time. I can't just, I can't show up once a day for 5 minutes. Hey, baby, how you doing? Good to see you. Love you. I'm out the door. That's, I have my 5 minutes of quality time with my wife and leave. It's not going to work. It's just not going to happen. So quality time comes from quantity time. Yes. And so
I'm pretty sure Dr. Chapman goes into that also.
I believe he does. Yeah. It's
but Brian's really sold
I'm adamant about that because so many people I just want to give them some quality time. The kids are gone to school all day. They're at camp. They're at whatever. And you send them off on their own little venture, and then you spend, I think statistically, it's less than a half an hour a day with your child. Yeah. And so I'm going to tell you right now, you can't create quality time in 30 minutes. No. You just can't do it. Yeah, 30 minutes might be a good quality moment, but it's not quality time. It's a quality moment. Mm-hmm. So you need to spend time with your children. Yeah. And won't you speak to that?
Exactly. We have two children who actually speak time pretty heavy. And so they just don't feel that love at all if they haven't had time with us. As they were growing up, they needed to feel the love of parents. Yeah. And if we didn't take time and stop and say, okay, let's play a game together. Let's go for a walk together. Let's sit down and watch something together, go to a movie together. It just takes going somewhere, doing something together that you get to focus your attention on them and they get to focus their attention on you. And that's what they really need. And you can we always knew when they were needing that infusion of time because they'd start getting real snappy or grouchy or they just wouldn't act loving and kind towards others, or they'd be hovering constantly, and you're like, okay, what do you need? Oh, we haven't sat down and done anything together. Even if it was when they were little, read a book or something like that. They just needed you to stop and pay attention to them for an amount of time that was their chunk of time. Yeah. And so that's where we had to learn to pour that in. And Brian speaks time really well too, so it's easy for him to stop and say, okay.
And if you have more than one child who needs time, they want quality time alone. Right. Not just in a group. It's okay to do group things.
They like group things.
They love that. But they want your time. Yeah. They want to spend time. I have one child that I would just randomly take them to eat, or we'd go see a movie, or
Mm-hmm.
we'd go just hang out somewhere. We didn't even have to talk. All they wanted was to be in my presence,
Right.
which is weird to me.
Right.
Because
Because he's a talker. That's
well,
why.
well, that's part of it. But the other part is, even though I'm their dad, I don't see myself as all that, right? And so I'm like, why do they just want to hang out with me? Well, they want to hang out with me because they love me. They want to hang out with me because they
Yep.
want my time.
Yep.
And then Dr. Dobson talks about a lot of morals and values are caught, not taught.
Mm-hmm.
So the quality time leans into that.
Yeah.
So if you want to instill your faith, your beliefs, your morals, your perspective of the world into your child, spend time with them.
Right.
Spend a lot of time with them.
Exactly.
And make sure that you do that. And again, it's not just quality time; it's quantity time.
Yeah, I want to throw in here too that when our children were young, very young, when they're like maybe 8 and younger, maybe, we just would give them all the different languages. we tried to just give them every language there was, because they didn't know what they needed to feel loved yet. They didn't know what their particular language of love was. But we wanted to fuel all of them to see which one they responded to the most.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure what language your children speak, what language they move in, that's fine. Just keep doing them all until they respond really well to one or two maybe, and then you'll have a better idea.
Yeah. And that takes time, especially when they're little.
Yeah.
Because
they haven't developed.
They haven't developed. You know all this information.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, kid, which is it? Are you time or your words?
Yeah.
They're like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So, so do all these with, especially if they're younger. If they're a little older, it's a little bit more obvious.
And you can take the quiz when they're older.
You can.
That would help you to narrow it down.
You can do that, or a lot of just watching their behavior.
Yeah.
It's really fun because, like, I can go to a room. I'm a pastor of a trade, so I go into a room of people and I'll watch people how they interact. I'm like, oh, that's a touch person over there, and then we'll see someone else over here vacuuming the floor. I'm like, oh, they're acts of service. Yeah. And you could see it, and then it's because different love language is their main love language. They don't even think about the other one. Yeah. They just do what they do to love people.
Right.
And so it's really important that you know them, so you can relate to them.
Right.
And they can relate to you. So as they're growing up, you'll see definite trends in their life, how they interact with each other, how they interact with you. If they're constantly going, like, you go somewhere, like we would leave and go to a conference or something, come back, and we have a couple who are gifts. Is one of their love languages. One especially, it's really their love language.
She needed us to bring something home.
And they go, what'd you bring me? What'd you get me? What'd you bring me? So you had to learn what that was. So anyway, back to time. Give them your time.
Right.
And know this: your time, which is valuable, monetarily, it's valuable eternally. It's valuable socially. It's valuable.
Yeah.
But if you don't give them time, your children, they will see that as a lack of value that you have for them. Right. Even if they're not a time love language, that's not their main language.
Right.
They will see that as a lack of value. My dad would rather spend time with somebody else's family than mine. Yeah. Pastor kids notoriously have that issue.
Yes.
And so, because pastors are always pouring out and giving to other people, so you have to, and I tried to do this with my children, make sure that my time with them was cherished and coveted. There were some times where I would not go do something because I was doing family.
Especially the two that speak
time,
absolutely. Really,
absolutely.
That's their main one. Brian would really make sure that he took time out to take them on dates or outings, to do something with them.
Yeah.
They got my time a lot more because we homeschooled and I was there all the time. And so I could stop and do something with one of them and it was easier. But definitely time was something you had to set aside for them so that they remembered that they were more important than the congregation or than somebody else's problem or whatever.
Or if I needed to go take care of something, I may take one of them with me.
Right.
And just spend the time with me. Now, I knew once we got to that destination, I'm going to have to really focus on the other people, another person, and their need, but I just brought them with me.
Yeah.
And so they watched how I did things and learned how I did things. Again, values that were caught, not taught, because I spent that kind of time with them. So the next one is words of affirmation. I am a touch person, and I am a words person. Words.
Words and time, I think, are equal for you, but yeah.
They are.
But words are really important.
You remember the old saying, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, words will never hurt me." It's a lie. Because words hurt and words encourage. Words are one of the most important things that you can use as a tool in life. Period. Whether you're a words of affirmation person or not. The Bible talks about using your words in your faith, in how you do things. But if you have a child that's a words of affirmation person, and you look at them and they do something that's not right or wrong, and you chew them out, oh my gosh, you might as well just broke their leg. You might as well just put them in the rack and stretch them a couple extra inches. To them, that's how that feels, because words mean things to them. It's not just something that's flippantly thrown out there. Because growing up, I'm the third of 6 children, and growing up, we picked on each other constantly. So words were thrown around that weren't nice. Not being nice about the terms. And we used to play what they called the dozens, and the part of the game was to insult each other. And see who could insult each other the best. Not a good game for someone that likes words, and I'm one of those people. I was really good at it because I like words. I was good at the game, but really I didn't like the game because it was not something I wanted to do on a regular basis. So words of affirmation are really one of the most powerful love languages that's available to anybody, because and if someone has that, you, especially as they're growing up, you have to be really cautious about the words you use to describe them, to talk to them, to correct them, to discipline them. We've got one child that is just a words person over everything.
She's so much a words person. That's her profession. She's an author.
She's an author. She writes.
So she writes. So
she's a words person.
But she's also a softer personality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not we have very strong personalities in our family, but she is the softest of all of them. And coupling the soft personality with her love of words and her need for good words, she was moved by the words we spoke to her much quicker than the other kids were. And so if we had to encourage her, or let's say if we had to correct her, you had to be careful that you didn't go overboard on it. Because like with some of the other personalities and love languages, you can say stronger things and it's not going to like pierce them. With our daughter, if we said really strong things to her, it was like arrows shooting into her, and it was very painful for her. So we had to be really careful that once we identified that we were not harming her. We didn't want to harm her. We wanted to correct her, but we didn't want to harm her. Now, on the flip side of that, it did not take very much at all to get her built up. Because just one compliment, and she could go for days on one compliment, because it just meant so much to her, and she would just cherish that, and she'd be thriving on it. She would it was wonderful.
And she's still that way. She's still super sensitive if there's a correction being done, if there's a direction being given. But you turn around and flip it on its head and say something really kind to her.
She just shines.
She's just like, oh, this is wonderful. And she just beams, because words affect her deeply, good and bad. And so you have to know that about your child, because if you're like, well, I was just saying that, I didn't mean anything by it. They don't
understand that.
Because when they say something, they mean it.
They mean it.
When they hear something, they feel like it's meant to them and for them. So that's something that you have to really work on.
And so that's where also it comes in with if you make promises to that child, you need to keep those promises, because those words, they are taking them as very, very important, and they're believing what you're saying. And so if you don't follow through on your promises, then that kind of cuts into their love, and that's a problem. So.
Careful how you joke with them. I've got one child I can joke with because they have my sense. Well, two have my sense of humor,
Yeah.
and so I can be ornery and say something to them, and they know I'm just playing. I can't do that with my words person.
No.
I can't. I can still joke with them and play with them, but I have to be more cautious about
She
how I
gets
do it.
insulted a lot faster.
Really quick.
Really
so because words are a big deal to her.
Yeah.
So that's a big love language, words of affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, my wife's an expert in because it's her love language.
Acts of service. Yay.
You'll find her doing things
Yep.
for our children, doing things for our family, doing things for everybody else. Tends to not do a whole lot for herself. Acts of service people tend to be outward, not inward, and they do those things. So I had to learn early on in our marriage. You know, I could tell her how beautiful she is. You know, how much I liked the way she looked. You know, talk about certain body parts and tell her they're great. I still do those things, by the way. She's shaking her head at me.
Family.
It's family. I didn't go detail. and so we were cautious, but I could do all that, and she likes that. She likes me to do that. But if I grab a vacuum and clean something, if I wash some dishes for her, which I hate to do,
if you'd even pick them up, that made me happy. That made me happy.
All that.
Pick it all up. You know.
Anything I did that was an act of service that would help her in her daily process of the needs of the household. Man, it was amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
we did not end up with any children with acts of
not
service
one.
as their love language. I don't know how this happened. It's not that they can't speak it towards me,
and
but
they do.
They really have to work at it. It's not really their forte. I do know a family that has an acts of service child, and that child will get up early to make breakfast for their parents. That child will, clean something up and make a special thing just to serve their parents. That's the kind of thing that a acts of service child does. They make opportunities to do something for others, and so that's one that's pretty easy to identify. If they're trying to always do something for you, to help you, to bless you,
they're trying to help you cook, they're trying to help you clean.
Yeah, then they're acts of service.
They're trying to help fix things around you, and you're like, really, I got this. No, let them help.
Yeah.
Now I understand especially when they're small, their help is more of a hindrance.
Yeah.
But let them help. You're feeding into their love language,
right?
And let them.
They just want to feel appreciated for helping and stuff.
And they'll beam like, oh, I washed this plate. This is amazing. Give them the one thing to do. And acts of service child actually will pick up their room.
Yeah, right.
We didn't have one of those.
As soon as they understand that shows love to someone, then they will definitely do that.
Yeah.
So, the last one is gifts. Gifts seems like an easy one.
Seems like, but it's really not.
The one thing that I've learned is that if the love language of that person is gifts, and you're trying to love them in that language, then they don't just want you to bring them a gift in a bag from the store. I mean, they'll appreciate that, but if you really want to do it right, you have to put their gift into something special, tie a bow on it, make it look pretty. They want to receive the gift is how they feel the love. Gifts are important. My sister speaks gifts, and our daughter is a gifts child, the one that we had to bring something home to all the time. But gifts are important, and then when they receive that gift, then they feel like you are saying, oh, I love you so much. It just says I love you to them in the biggest way, and they feel special. And that's what you're trying to do, is build up their love tank so that they feel loved from their parents.
Yeah.
The last thing that I kind of wanted to bring up was that the weird thing is that sometimes you speak love in one way to give it out, but you receive it back in a different way.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of watch that to make sure that when you're loving your child, they're receiving it in that language, but then watch them. How are they giving love back to others or to you? And make sure that you balance that out and pay attention to that so that you are able to help them when they're loving others. They need to, they may need ideas from you or whatever as the parent.
Right.
And so if they are loving in a little bit different language than what they're receiving love, then you just got to watch that.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. And the thing with gifts is, like he said, it's not just here. Someone who has gifts
Yeah.
is their love language. They want it wrapped up a certain way.
Yeah.
They want a presentation.
Birthdays and Christmas are like the biggest things
Oh,
ever for them.
huge.
They need to have pretty presents. They need to have them all done up nicely. They want to receive done up nicely things, and so.
And not only
important.
that, our daughter that is a gift person, she is married with children. She wants gifts for her own children.
Yeah.
So I know at Christmas this year, my oldest son got a really cool gift for her son.
For the baby.
For the baby.
Mm-hmm.
For the youngest son.
Mm-hmm.
She got two sons, sorry.
He's a baby.
For the little one. And he'll have to grow into this particular thing, but it was a really cool gift that he found. And
it was thoughtful.
Yeah.
It was speaking to her language.
Big time.
Gift-wise. And it was speaking to both of them, loving history and liking things that have been through an era of
right.
history and things that they enjoy.
Right.
And so when she opened it,
oh my word, she lost her cool.
She was just really
mouth
excited.
wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Just, oh my word, this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's too big. But
baby didn't appreciate it yet.
The baby has no idea. But oh my word, it was. My son did a really good job of speaking love language to his sister.
Yes.
And that's the other thing that as we wrap up this talk today about the 5 love languages, teach your children how to love their siblings.
Yes.
In the love languages of the sibling.
Yep.
If you'll teach them that and start young, teach them, hey, little Bobby here, Joey, really likes it when you wrestle with him and play with him and hug him. He really likes that.
Yep.
But your sister Anna, not so much.
Right.
What she really likes is if you just sit down and just read a book to her and tell her how pretty she is, how cute she is. She likes that. And so you can do it on a really, elementary, practical level, but begin young to teach your children how to love each other in the other child's love language. And watch what happens.
Yeah.
Because that'll flourish. Our children, we taught them early and often. And so now here they are adults, and they're still loving each other in the love languages. They know
what the other is, and they know how to fuel that love between them. So you'll find our time people sitting down together in the evening, spending time together.
Yeah.
You find the words people getting words, of how compliments and all the things that we can say to them, and the touch people are getting back rubs and they're getting hugs all over the place and stuff.
My words girl, she's written books specifically for nephews and nieces and brothers and sisters
as gifts. As
a gift. Wrote a book just for them. That's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because words mean that much to her. So it's teaching them how to love each other in the gifts that they have and that their siblings have.
Right.
So that's how the 5 love language can be applied through you to your children, and teach them how to apply it to one another as well. Yeah. Anything else to add at that point?
I don't think so.
She doesn't think so. Give it a minute.
Yeah.
Hang on.
It
30,
might pop in, but I don't
20,
think so.
10. All right. No, we're good. Well, thank you for hanging out with us today on this first podcast of February. And we thank you for being with us. And no, we understand. Love is in the air. It's everywhere.
It is.
And we're going to talk about love all month long. We hope that you enjoyed the podcast. And we hope that you come back next week. We're going to take the same topic and apply it to you as husband and wife. So come back next week. Check that all out. Be sure to listen to the outro about all the like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Be sure to join us with the commercials, and go to our website and go to the Father Family Enterprise website and find something that you need, essential service that's for you. Also, don't forget, we just finished Leslie's book, and it's in distribution phase. So they are working on that. So there'll be a release date coming in the next week or two. So by the time you listen to next week's podcast, we'll probably have a release date, and we can tell you when and where to buy the family manual, a practical guide to raising a Christian family. So excited. My wife's an author. So with all that said, thank you for hanging out with us, and we will see you on the next video, and we'll let you hear us on the next podcast. Talk to you soon. All right. Bye for now.